Happy Tuesday to you. How you doing? How you doing? Good, good. So today is January 26th, which is the day Mutant Mudds was originally released on the Nintendo 3DS eShop in 2012 in North America. Boom. Max, there he is. 4 years ago. Crazy cool. So anyway, so I've been tweeting out some muddy memories from that year around that time and stuff, and it's actually really cool to look back and all that and kind of see had some amazing coverage on there's Nintendo Week and Nintendo 3D Show and all kinds of cool stuff. I mean Nintendo Direct. I mean Nintendo even advertised it on a online eShop campaign around that time. It was crazy awesome, and that was our first self-published game. So that was kind of an amazing entry into that. Just really downhill from there, really. Which is some of that's true actually, but not all of it. But it was good timing. It was a good time to release the game. Very fortunate, and if we can somehow get half of that for Super Challenge, we'll be in a good spot. So speaking of which, segue. Super Challenge is coming along very good. So that's cool. Where am I at? So yeah, I've just been playing through it. I mean, really, all I have left now is secret characters to finish off, which is probably what I said yesterday. And I'm just playing through the game, making little tweaks and polish, and just little things. So I'm actually having a lot of fun with it, which is good. Which isn't necessarily me saying it's a reflection of how good the game is. It's just amazing that having when you work on a game for so long and playing it isn't usually fun at this stage in development, just because you're so over it, you've played it so much, you're like, yeah, whatever. But I'm actually still having fun with it. And the same thing with Muds actually as well, which is cool. When we originally made that, I wasn't sick of it. All the way through development, the game was released, on the 3DS. As soon as it was released, I downloaded it, of course, and I played through it again. It's been the same way, even when it came out on iOS. Even recently, we updated the App Store version of Muds for iOS, and I played through all of that again, and it was fun. It's interesting. And I don't have the same feeling. I can't get that from most of our other games, and I think because Muds isn't a linear story, like Dementium, Drifter even, it's a linear progression, through the game, whereas Muds isn't about that at all. It's about that moment-to-moment challenge or requirement for you to act, whether it be jump, duck, shoot, hover, whatever. Get the hell out of the way. At a pretty rapid pace. Muds, even though the game, isn't fast like Sonic Fast, the demand the game has on the player is a pretty rapid pace as far as you must act to progress or avoid being killed. It's actually a pretty good pace, and I think that's what allows me to continually enjoy it. Because even when you've played a level 1,000 times, you can go back to it and it's still entertaining. Pretty cool. Anyway, so I'm getting the same feeling on Super Challenge, so yay. And even maybe in a slightly better way for me, because it's more challenging overall. It's those slower levels, maybe even World 1 of the original Muds, which is a little less thrilling, because they do kind of ease you into it, even though they're still quite challenging. Maybe it's just level 1, actually, because some of the levels in World 1 aren't that super simple. Anyway, whatever, you get my point. So the game's going really good, so fingers crossed, touch wood and all the rest of it. We'll be submitting that, pretty soon to Nintendo, so that'd be awesome. Good stuff. Alright, so I'm going to jump into some questions from yesterday and see what we have. Bradley News 11. Hey Bradley, how's it going? Good to see you. I must say, thank you for taking that screen capture of me, I think it was last week, from one of my videos and posting that on Twitter. It was a very apt capture of me doing a silly face. Very nice. Much appreciated. Alright, your question. Was the design of Max from Meet Your Muds influenced by any real-world person video game character, or did you just come up with a design out of nowhere? So originally, obviously, it was designed as the 3D platformer on the DS back in, excuse me, whenever that was, 2010, 9-ish. Excuse me, gosh. And the idea, so Greg, created the first character, which is the 3D polygonal Max, and the thought of that character was just to create just a kind of a somewhat, I guess, generic kid, but kind of nerdy, with stereotypically nerdy, in the cartoony sense, with the glasses and all that stuff. He has his school uniform on, the white shirt and the little tie. Not you see it much in the game, but that's what he's wearing. I mean, that's his white shirt right there. Not that you would know it, but and he has his black shorts on. Inspired, I guess, by Dexter's Lab and stuff like that, and just other stereotypically geeky kind of kids, because that's kind of what that I wanted it to be. It's kind of that geeky boys adventure, and it ties into having the equipment with the gun and the jetpack and all that kind of stuff. Just someone who, yeah, he may be a nerd, but he uses that strength to then help, fight against the challenges that are being thrown at him. If you want to get deep about it for a second. Anyway, so that's kind of where it came from. So Greg did the original one on the DS in 3D, and then when it came to me just fiddling one day to create the 2D one, that guy was born. I think originally this area was a little bit more shorter, a bit more kind of compressed there. So he was altogether a bit shorter when I did the very original drawing. And it looked a bit too squatty, a bit too weird. So I extended, I think, probably just the shorts, maybe one extra pixel on the leg there as well. I'm not sure, but definitely extended this whole area just to make him a bit more height. He's still not exactly tall, but he was a bit too squatty before. Anyway, so there you go. So I hope that helps. So yeah, there you go. And not at all influenced by Jeff, actually, on Earthbound. I'm not saying that with sarcasm. I didn't even know who Jeff was on Earthbound, and people were commenting after Muds was released saying, hey, is that Jeff from Earthbound? And I'm like, I don't know who you're talking about. And obviously now I do know exactly who that is. But no, in no way was he inspired by him. Just an uncanny. I mean, I think we were probably thinking the same thing. Stereotypical geeky kid. There you go. All right, Espresso. Hey, Espresso, how's it going? Next question. If you made an RPG, would it be closer to Final Fantasy or Legend of Zelda? Could it even be an in-between like Secret of Mana? Actually, I think you said you'd like to make a Zelda-type game in the past vlog, so refresh the question. Would it be closer to Link to the Past or the original Zelda? I would, off the top of my head, without actually working on one right now and haven't really thought about it, I would lean more towards Link's Awakening on the Game Boy Color is the one I mean, it's the same as the Game Boy one with some added content and color. But that's probably my favorite Zelda is Link's Awakening on the Game Boy Color. So, DX. It's just a nice little... I like... there's lots of things I like about it. So I'd probably lean more towards that. I do like Secret of Mana. I played that. That's a really good game as well. So some of the elements of that are very appealing to me. So somewhere in that neighborhood. Somewhere... Not Final Fantasy. I'm not really... I haven't played much of those, honestly. I've played some of them. They're very story and text heavy, which I'm not really into so much. I like more of action, kind of just gameplay. Get in there with some text, sporadically spread out across the game, as I'm sure you can tell from the games that I've worked on. None of them are really text, dialogue heavy, because yeah, I'd prefer just to get in there and have fun. So I hope that answers your question. Aaron Knight, hey Aaron, how's it going? Good to see you again. I'll hear from you again. Thanks for the shout out. He does ask about Australian stuff, even though he's in New Zealand, but it sounds like he can actually still get Australian games even though he's in New Zealand, which is pretty cool. Interesting. I guess you can switch between the regions. That's pretty neat. Tempted to get a new 3DS. I guess a US one maybe. Import 3DS to play that. Anyway. Yeah. Cool. Alright. Well, hey, that wasn't a question, I guess. It was just a comment. good to hear from you. Anyway, um, I will try and find some questions. Jose Mena Garcia asks, "Am I a fan of Castlevania?" Yes, I am. If so, which is your favorite and why? I lean towards Circle of the Moon on the GBA, which ironically, well, not ironically, but it strangely, interestingly, came out at the time when the GBA screen was really dark. It wasn't very well reflected. It was really hard to see. So that game, I think, was largely overlooked by a lot of people because it was so hard to see and play on the original or early GBAs. But then obviously the newer ones came out. Like I play on the GBA SP, the little flip top one. It's an amazing system, and it looks great. Looks perfect on that. Or I guess you can play it on the DS. Yeah, DS and DS Lite. Anyway, that's. I think that might be my favorite. There's just some issues. It's not a perfect game for sure, but I liked the gameplay flow. I liked some of the areas required a little bit of grinding to increase your ability or power, or whatever, before you could really defeat a boss. And you could try and defeat the boss, but then you would have your ass handed to you. So you're like, okay, great, I guess I'm not ready. So you go off and either just grind to get better, or you would get a power up that would help you, or get one of the little cards that would drop and give you a new attack. I really loved Circle of the Moon. So if you haven't played it, I definitely recommend it. I really loved it. I mean, the downside is the main character is really kind of generic and bland. He doesn't look that interesting. He moves fairly well. The attack moves. The run animation I remember being pretty bad. Not very many frames, and so there's some weird stuff about it. But the overall game, I like a lot. So that's one of my ones that I would say. Have we considered a 2D version of Son of the Dragon? Yes, we have considered that. Yeah, but there's no plans to do it right now. But yeah, no, we've definitely talked about that, and maybe one day we would do that. Philip Elder. Hey Philip, how's it going? Honestly, I'm pumped for the boss fights, the secret characters, the challenge, and more mods. What is my favorite aspect of designing, or thing to design, once you've had a new idea? The most exciting portion for me of game development is that moment where you've got the idea and the concept, and you've actually convinced someone else to work with you to actually make that become a reality. And it's that phase of you taking it from concept to first playable, so you can actually then feel it and experience it for real for the first time, and see if what you were thinking is good or interesting or is flawed or whatever. So that's really fun. I remember that distinctly on all of our games. Dementium, the first game, when we had a dark hallway with a flashlight, when we got that working, it was like, oh man, that's awesome. On the DS, whoa. And we kept on pushing from there on how much we could get out of the DS and what we could do with the concept. But that was a very exciting time. I remember that with mods, ironically, actually, we initially tried it on the Xbox 360. Yeah, we were messing around with it on there as a concept, even before the 3DS eShop even existed. It had been announced. Or even before the 3DS was announced even. I can't remember, but I can't remember now, but before the eShop existed for sure. And I think that's why we moved from Xbox Live to the eShop, is as soon as it was announced, like, oh, that's much more attractive, let's go to the eShop. But that period where we were, actually, initially we were just really, just prodding around in the dark almost, kind of figuring out what we want to do with the game. I had a lot of different ideas and thoughts what to do with the original kind of MUDs or platformer type game. And I hadn't really determined whether it was going to be Max in it or not, but I had created his sprite and he was running around in it, but I didn't know if it was going to be a Mutant Mudds game or not. And at that time, I think I'd initially created more of a Metroidvania kind of flow where you go from here, I need the power up, I get the power up, I come back, I can now move on and so on, like Zero Drifter or Metroid. But then eventually landed on what it is. I think probably that changed dramatically when we decided to go 3DS. Anyway, but that period is really fun for me. It's just that playing around with the ideas and solidifying the core of the game, the heart of the game, the essence, That's super exciting. Professor Whom, hey, Professor, asks, assuming time, budget, and reception were not issues, what kind of game would you want to make? For example, would it be a platformer, RPG, FPS, and what would the theme be? Um, well, we've done a lot of different genres already, so there's not many left to do. But I would probably do. Um, it would probably be even between a 3D platformer, like Mario, etc., um, or like a Dimension 3 or a new survival horror game, FPS. Yeah, I'll probably do that if money wasn't an issue. That's probably what I would do, I think. Yeah. Caleb Cromwell. Hey, Caleb. Hey, Jules. If the NX will be handheld and a home console, will you switch over to making games to that for that, or will you continue making 3DS? It really depends on what's going on with the market, but it's always a good idea to jump on to a new console when it comes out. Really, I mean, Muds, I think, is a good example of that. It came out when the eShop was very, very new, and it was received well at that time because people really want games for it. And if anything that has anything to offer, people are like, oh, great, I'll jump on that. So it's a really good time to try new ideas and do original games with a new machine. As machines get older, it's harder to release original new ideas because you're competing with marketing budgets of other games, from big companies. So people are less likely to try and experiment with new original ideas and things that are unknown potentially. Honestly, most people that are probably watching this video are not the general mass as far as how they view games. Most people like myself, I'll research a game and look into it before I'll buy it or hear from friends or whatever. So I don't just rely on more the general kind of means, but the mass market of where our games are sold, I think, are affected by those thoughts. So there you go. I think that hopefully answers your question. But I mean, in summary though, with that, I'm very eager to jump onto the NX. So I'm very much looking forward to find out what it is and when on earth it's coming out and when we get a dev kit for it. Because I would love to jump onto something like that because it's exciting, to be part of a new launch. Tony Dominguez Reg. Every developer has made a game or some games before releasing his first major title in a company just to experiment and learn for fun, etc. Can you talk about one of your first games that you actually created by yourself? Dominguez, actually, it's Dominguez, isn't it? I don't know why I just said it a few minutes ago, but anyway. Hey, Tony. Well, I mean, I think there's a difference between there's games I worked on professionally, I guess, when I did it, when I was getting paid to do it. But then there were games I was making at home when I was a kid, on my Amiga and my ST in my bedroom. So that to me kind of, none of them were finished, none of them were any good. It was just fun experiments with things like Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit, and Amos was another game making program on the Amiga. So nothing I can actually remember the name of, but just kind of experimenting with, I guess, not being burdened with the need to create an entire game. I was kind of just toying around with concepts, with ideas, and then get bored of that and move on to something else, which was great. I think that was really good to kind of experiment with that because, yeah, for me, it was just a good rapid way of kind of trying out ideas and experimenting and exploring game design and art and all the rest of it. But my first professional game that I worked on was Rodland for the NES, which was a port of a arcade game, which I don't know if it was very big over here, but it was pretty big in the UK and Europe. The arcade game was, I don't know if the NES one was, but that was the first game I worked on. Did some sprites, some character and background stuff for it. I think Ripper9, hey Ripper9, has a question about RPG, which is probably similar to what I answered before, as far as what RPG I'd like to make. But like I say, yeah, probably more Zelda, Link's Awakening, I'd have to pause. I think which one it is. Yeah, Link's Awakening. Um, but I would like to do a mystery dungeon type thing as well at some point. But I see that as a different, separate, in addition to kind of thingamajig. Um, what are the chances of it being 3D instead of pixel based? It depends on the platform. I think if it was 3DS, it'd probably be Pixel. If it was NX or other consoles, then it'd probably be, well, it could be either actually. It could be 2D or Pixel. But then, I mean, 3D or Pixel. But Pixel 3D would be fun though as well. But it's a lot more work, a lot more time. And speaking of time, I'm over 20 minutes already, so I probably need to start wrapping this up. Looks like, oh, there's only one more anyway, I think, so that's cool. Zach Daniels, hey Zach, I would love to know where and how you came up with Dementium. Basically from my love of survival horror with Silent Hill 2 and Doom 3. Those two games I really enjoyed. Resident Evil 4 is another great one, but that may have come out after we did Dementium actually. Yes, I'm sure it did. I can't remember now. Jeez. You know, so it was very much inspired by that. We wanted to do an FPS wanted to do something ballsy basically on the DS. So survival horror was a good idea for the DS because it was so different. Doing FPS is nice because it's a good genre, but also means you haven't got to worry about the third-person camera or the character and all that kind of stuff, which is a lot extra additional work you have to do. So that was kind of a practical decision. Yeah, and so it was kind of like, yeah, let's go with that. And I spent a long time thinking about, for me, something that's really important with any game, I guess, but especially a survival horror game, is I wanted to think of a location or a theme that was somewhat original, or not. And it's not really original, but at least there weren't really any games at the time that were fully embracing it's set in a hospital kind of, or mental place. Yeah, I mean, I think both Silent Hill and Resident Evil had hospitals in them, but it was never the focus of the game. So I thought that would be fun. So I really wanted to have a strong theme. Some other ideas were like being, trapped on like a tanker, like a boat out in the middle of the ocean. Basically trying to pick an isolated location that's inherently scary, but also unique in its own right. So when you think of the game, it's associated with that theme. So that just helps strengthen, its value to the player. Yeah, and we kind of just went from there, try to figure out what on earth to do with that. And we just chipped away and was like, great, let's shove it in a hospital. Flashlight, surgical experiments, a couple of weapons, let's go, let's see what we can do. And it kind of went from there, really. So, cool, well, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for coming by and checking this out. This ran a lot longer than I had anticipated. I hope you're doing well. Happy birthday to Max. And I'll see you guys again next time. Alright, thanks. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Cool, thanks guys.